Go. Woo!
Hey everybody, a bitch is tired.
And I didn't just turn gay yesterday. Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear, right?
Iconique. Ooh, but we are in a new country today. You've never been to Norway before, but here, this is in Norway, right?
Yes, I've been to IKEA before, but I think that's Sweden.
I think so. Sorry to that region of the world that we just offended. It's fine.
You're white people, you'll be fine.
Yeah, they're fine. They got free healthcare.
Yeah. Actually, you should feel bad for us. Take some of your own. And today we are here with something that has been requested by people who watch us regularly, literally since I think maybe the 10th time we did one of these vlogs, like forever.
Oh yeah, I've been pushing this one for a long time too, and Sam didn't want to do it. And finally, you guys persuaded her. So I'm excited to jump in today.
Yes. So we are doing one season of the Norwegian television show SKAM. We are doing season 3. And before we get into the discussion, I needed to be very clear about the fact that we're doing the one season. I have not watched seasons 1 and 2 of this show. I have not watched season 4. I have not watched any other iteration of this show, even though I know that they have multiple iterations of this show. I think there's France, America, Denmark, Italy, just all over the place. This is the only thing we're going to talk about is this season of this show, no context.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who are like, oh, you forgot to mention that this character did this in a previous season. Oh, or you didn't tell us which one of the couples is your favorite out of all the different countries. That's not happening today, guys. I'm sorry. I just want you to know that it's not because we don't like things. It's just we are working people, and that's a lot of watching to have to do to prepare for an hour or 2 hours worth of conversation.
Yeah, especially since we honestly only care about the gay season.
Well, I mean, there are multiple gay seasons. In fact, the couple from France is super famous. A lot of people talked about them when I was looking up this season. I think it's Lucas and Elliot, I think is what they're called.
Okay.
And their couple name is Elu. Great looking boys. But again, I can't do every single country season. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the format of this show has multiple seasons. I think there's 4 in the original series, and each season is basically one character's story. And it focuses on one person, I guess is the main character. And after SKAM in Norway finished, different countries then took that same identical storyline and format, and they did it in different countries, and they followed the same season. So like if season 1 was about a guy and a girl and rumors, then season 1 in Italy would be a guy and a girl and rumors. If season 4 was about a girl from a very strict religious background trying to date somebody outside of her background, season 4 in the other countries would be the exact same thing. So this gay storyline from season 3 in Norway is repeated in every country in their season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in seeing how this storyline plays out in different countries, it is available for you to watch. It just is not something that we had the time to do before having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I want to start off right on the back by offending a lot of people. Young Royals is trash. I needed to say that now because when we were talking about Young Royals, I had not seen SKAM season 3, and there were some people who did not appreciate our review of Young Royals, didn't think we gave it a fair shake. Had I watched this before watching Young Royals, the absolute beating I would have given that show.
Right? I was literally thinking this morning that this is just better Young Royals.
Yeah.
Like Young Royals tried to do SKAM season 3 and didn't do it as well.
It was so painful to think about. Like I was watching this and at every turn I could see the parallels from storyline, from setting, from emotional arcs. And I was thinking to myself, my God, what is it like to be the Dollar Tree version of a show? because that's what Young Royals is. It is the Dollar Tree version of a much better show.
Not the Dollar Tree version.
Kinda. It is the actors don't look as good, except for the one actor, Simon. He's quite handsome. But the actors don't look as good. The storyline isn't as well thought out. It is filmed uglier. Like, it's just, there's so much that just feels like, it feels like the original and then like the fanfic version, if we were to call it that. It's just bad. There's a lot missing.
I get that. It's like what 21 and it's like 21 and Blackpink, you know, we have the great version and then as you said, the dollar store version.
Yeah, and I even want to do that because Blackpink's got a couple of things that are in its own lane. They've got Lisa, but if this is 21 versus 4 Minute.
Yeah. But even 4 Minutes got Hyuna.
That's right. Damn, there's not a good comparison. There's just not a good. Okay, this is I Told Sunset About You versus Tonghon Chonlethi. Like, it's general principles, but not at all good. Just don't understand. I don't understand the praise that Young Royals got if the same audience was watching both of these products.
Agreed. But it sounds like you liked this season.
I did. And you know what? I would say episode 3, episode 4 is when I realized I think that the woman who wrote this must be around my same age group, because this season very much felt like a woman who grew up as a teenager in the 90s, who wrote gay fan fiction and somehow or another managed to get people to give her television money. And she said, bitch, I have songs in my mind. I have storylines plotted out. I can't wait, because there are so many musical and cultural references to things that have nothing to do with teenagers who would have been this age at this time period.
Right.
So for me watching it, I'm like, oh, I know what the fuck this is. All right. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did. And I think it's the first time in all of the shows that we have watched so far that we're dealing with something that I don't think we've ever really talked about. And that's the effect that mental health plays on a relationship. Because we've had people that have had issues. I think we've even talked about somebody maybe with a disability in a relationship, but this is the first time that we ever talked about like having the conversation of having mental health issues and trying to have a relationship with somebody and where to fit that in, dealing with the stigma of mental health issues in the context of trying to have a relationship. And I found that part of this storyline to be gold. Like I could do a movie. If somebody want to do a movie about this or do like a 12 episode arc of this, I'd watch it all day, because it really is not talked about enough, not just in gay media, but in media in general, straight media as well. So, yeah.
So where should we begin?
Synopsis, please.
It's really brief. It is about a boy named Isaac. He has a second year in high school, and he starts to have these little butterflies for a boy named Evan, and it's about how it spirals into their romance. That's pretty much it. It's really simple.
So let's talk a little bit about the school system in Norway, because I had to look this up in order for me to be able to understand what the fuck was going on in this show, because I didn't get it. So in Norway, the school system is 3 different schools. There's elementary, secondary, and then, or is it primary, secondary, and then there's this pseudo high school that's only 3 years. And you go to high school typically between the ages of 16 and 19. So in the show, there was a moment where Evan, who's one of the characters, tells Issac, I forget how young you are, but they go to the same school and they're only a year apart in the school system. And so I was trying to figure out like, what's going on here, especially because Evan has a girlfriend who's like, I just got top saleswoman of the month, but they're the same age, but she doesn't go to school, she works. So I had to try to figure it out. And so apparently elementary school or primary school is the school that everybody goes to in Norway. You have to. That country has 100% literacy rate because everybody has to go to basic school. And then there's kind of your middle school arc, which is a similar 3-4 year period where you go from doing like school that has no grades. Their elementary school has no grades. School that has no grades to finally having graded school. And then when you get into your last 3 years, which would be the high school arc, that is when you kind of start to make career decisions. So if you're planning on going into business or the trades, you'd be on a trade arc, you do internships, like that'd be kind of where you'd be at. If you're planning on being more of a academic research minded arc, then you would start developing some of your more humanities studies and getting ready to go on to university. And if you were looking more to be kind of in the trades in terms of carpentry, HVAC, that kind of thing, you'd stay more in that lane. And your last 2 years, you'd have an internship for part of the time. And then in your very last year, kind of full-time working internship things going on. So it was really interesting that their school system is set up like that, because you do end up with a lot of people with very different experiences because of what their expectations are in school at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the school system seemed weird. I kind of took it at face value because I watch a lot of anime, and it's the same. It's a similar school system where it's like high school is only 3 years. So I was just like, okay. They're in high school.
I will tell you, one of the things about watching a lot of these shows that we watch from around the world, I am so jealous of the school systems everywhere else in the world, because I'm like, I would have flourished under this system. This would have been me. I would have been perfect. But no, basic, lazy ass, boring ass, stupid ass American public system's the worst.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, every time I watch an anime that takes place in school, I'm like, I'd fucking fail. I'd fucking fail out of Japanese school. I couldn't do it. They don't get enough breaks for me.
I love school. Like, school was my favorite thing when I was in school. I was one of those kids who was like, I wish that I was failing classes so I go to summer school, but I can't. And all my friends are having fun going to summer school. But yeah, I love school. So being at school all day long would have been the best. But imagine going to school as a young child and not having any grades. Like,
that'd be nice.
Why didn't we do that here? Because instead of having grades, the teachers look at the kids and be like, okay, this kid looks like there's something lagging behind here. So instead of doing a grade, let's do an evaluation of their skill set and see where they could use a little bit more assistance in bringing their skill set up, or see where maybe there's some educational deficiencies. Like, that's such a better way of dealing with children than what we have, where it's like, your kid is failing, something wrong with them, fix it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I very much have school envy.
I can't believe you want to be in school. I could never wait. I always wanted to leave school.
After paying these bills for however long, you bet I wish I was back in school.
That's true. There is sort of a comfort to be like, I'm taking out loans, but I don't have to pay them right now.
Yeah, that, or just like, this is my job. That's all I have to do. I don't have any other thing. This is the job. Like, I didn't know how good I had until it was gone.
How Ravenclaw of you. Well, that's outdated now.
Yeah. We'll talk about J.K. Rowling a little bit later when we do Samantha's rant. Okay, so at the very beginning of this season, we're at a house party. People having fun, having a good time. There's a bunch of boys in the bathroom smoking weed, I guess. I think they're smoking weed. And they're talking about the hot girls. And there's one boy who's not really chipping into the conversation about the hot girls. And this is our main character, Issac. And he tells the friends in the bathroom that, of all the girls at the party, there's really only one girl that caught his eye, and it's a girl with a really short haircut. And all of a sudden, a girl comes into the bathroom like, I need to pee, and just fucking pees. Which, I guess, go ahead.
They were real chill about that. See, J.K. Rowling.
I I just was like so shocked when I was watching it.
Right?
And I know it's because I'm an American and we're so weird about like nudity and bodily functions. But
Yeah.
I was just like, if 4 guys were in a bathroom and I needed to pee, the conversation would be like, get the fuck out. I need to pee. It wouldn't be like, oh, turn around.
Yeah. They didn't even turn around. They were just kind of like sitting there like,
Yeah, just staring at her piss.
like, girl, let her
Yeah,
pee.
and then the girl with the short hair that Isaac is talking about, she comes
Emma?
into the bathroom. Well, we didn't have her name yet, so that's why I said the girl with the short hair. She comes into the bathroom, and of course, his homeboy's like, "Hey, there's a girl you were talking about. Go ahead and spit some game." First thing he does, he starts negging this girl.
Oh yeah. He's like, yeah, you look like
A
I forgot.
13-year-old
The girl
boy.
in Stranger Things. Yeah. Looked
Yeah.
like 11 from Stranger Things, which like I didn't realize that like why do I feel like this show came out pre-2016 but it didn't?
Because time doesn't exist since COVID.
That's really true. I was like, damn, 2016 was wild. Apparently, we had Stranger Things, we had SKAM, great K-pop year, like just a lot of things happening in 2016.
Yeah, and then we entered the Twilight Zone, and I don't know where the fuck we are now. They
It
say
all went
20.
downhill in 2017. That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, pretty much. So, he's nagging her, but somehow or another manages to make her see it as flirting rather than being an asshole.
Mhm.
And her and her friend were thinking about snorting allergy medicine. And he stops her from doing that by offering her a pill and a makeout session, which gets his friends off his back. And she's down for it. She's like, hey, I'm ready to do this thing. And as she's getting ready to be down for it, he has to stop her because he's like, oh shit, no, I didn't mean it like that. But of course, he can't really say it that way. He's more like, hold on, let's get back to the party.
Mm-hmm.
They get back to the party, and he has his friend's marijuana on him, and he can see the police are getting ready to break up the party. So he starts to hide the marijuana in not a great hiding place, to be honest with you.
No, he just shoves it in like a jar, but like barely.
Yeah, not even a lid on this jar.
Yeah, they would have found it like that for sure.
Yeah, there was a baggie hanging out of the jar. Like, it's so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So he hides the weed, escapes the party, and makes a getaway on his friend's bicycle. And that's kind of what happens. But there was a moment at this party where he saw somebody interesting. And then he left.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get the intro to the show, which the intro or the graphics for this show are so kind of European. And it was something I wanted to talk to you, Mason, about, because one of the things that we never really talk about when we're talking about our shows, the Asian shows we watch, we kind of have a hard time dealing with the passage of time. Whenever we're talking about our shows, it's always like, when did this shit happen? Like, how long have they been dating? Like, what is going on here? This show, one of the hallmarks of the show is the time stamping of every kind of start to a day.
They give you date. No. They give you like what day it is and the time, I think.
Yeah.
Like they're like, it is Monday at 9:15 a.m. Here we are.
So like if it's a Monday and it's 2:00, they should be in school. Or if it's Saturday, they're probably going to be off school. Or if they're saying we're going to get together on Friday and it's 7 p.m., like, okay, you're pre-gaming to get ready to go to a party. So it kind of really grounds you into where you are in both time and place while these people are living their lives.
Yeah, totally agree.
So the reason why we had to call out the fact that he hid the weed is because the next day at school, his friends are like, where did you put the weed? Particularly one of his friends is like, hey, they found some shit at the girl's house that had the party. Is that the weed we gave you? He's like, no, that's not my weed. That's something else. So he gets to class, and there is a young lady named Sana who comes up to him and is like, hey, I got your weed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, give it back. And she's like, I don't think so. Me and my friends, we're kind of nerds, and we have this group that's getting together, and you need to join our group if you want your weed back. Plus, I get 10% of whatever weed you hid because finder's fee, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And so he agrees that he and his friends will go to this group and they will do that in exchange for getting their weed back. Now, Mason, what do you know about this group?
I Googled it. It literally seems like this entire group based on the show is just they throw parties. That seems to be the gist. They just like throw parties. It's like, I literally Googled it and like it translates to basically like the good vibes group, which honestly kind of sick. I wish my high school had a good vibes group that threw parties every Friday. I'd be down.
So I lived in Germany when I was a child. And I have to say that because people need to understand kind of where I'm coming from things. When I was a kid, I lived in Germany for around 5 years. And I remember having a German teacher, Frau Welta, and she told us that Americans are really weird when it comes to Europe because we engage in a lot of small talk. Our socialization is like, hey, what do you think of the weather out there? And then we go on to things. And small talk is not really a thing that a lot of Europeans do. But in America, we have activity groups at schools, but we don't have social groups at school that are formal groups. Like we don't have school sanctioned social groups. We have like debate club, we have sports, we have art club, we have some of that stuff, but we don't have like a school sponsored kids getting together to drink and have fun type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found it really interesting that they have this as a part of like school life there, because that is so different than what we have. And like these groups have names, like there's the public relations group, there's the cooking group, there is the party bus group, like they all have kind of different roles. And I found it very interesting that their socialization in Europe is so kind of like within the framework of, rather than just people getting together and chatting.
Yeah, it was interesting. It made me want to learn more about Norway and the structure of these schools and the groups involved in them.
See, school envy. That's what I get when I watch this shit. So the group that he's joining, I guess, is a group that cooks food. Like that's their thing, is like they are the party supply group. Like they basically are in charge of setting up the scene for different parties.
Yeah.
And so he goes to school to go to the first meeting of this group. And as he's there, this guy that he saw out the corner of his eye happens to be in the room at this group. And he's like, where have I seen that guy before? And all of a sudden they're like, we're going to start doing trust exercises as a part of the group thing, which I am with you, Issac. When they start talking about trust exercises, I am out the door. I'm not touching nobody. I'm not falling on nobody. Like, leave me out of that shit. I hate it.
Yeah.
I work for a company that we do a quarterly meeting, and at our quarterly meeting, they give us group activities to do. So we had a group activity called Pass the Ball to see how quickly we could work together to solve problems for customers. We had a group activity where we had to arrange ourselves by order of birth, but we couldn't tell each other what year we were born. We had to tell each other important events in our life to see what order we should be in. It's bullshit. I'm always willing to bow out of shit like that.
Yeah, what does that help? Aren't you? You guys are all adults. Who cares?
Right. And so it's so dumb. Anyway, so he bows out of that and decides to kind of hang out in the bathroom and play on his cell phone. I relate. That's me too. And while he's there, the guy that he noticed from earlier comes into the bathroom and does the weirdest thing I have ever seen anybody do in a bathroom.
Use too much tissue paper?
Not only did he use too much tissue paper, when he's being stared at because he's using all the paper, he's like, oh, you wanted some paper? Digs in the trash and pulls out a piece of paper and hands it over. Which I don't know what kind of flirting that is, but I would have been offended personally.
I definitely wouldn't have been like, wow, I should fuck him. But that's what Isaac wanted, so good on him. I would have been like, I see the joint behind your ear, and since you took all the paper, you can give me some paper, okay?
This is the only person in the room who knows anything about drugs, not me. I'd have been like, oh, is that a homemade cigarette you got there, friend?
It was a joint. It was a pre-roll.
I don't know anything anything about drugs. I don't. So I'm just like, whatever. But yeah, he used so much paper towels. Like he must have used at least 30 paper towels. It was digging in the paper towel receptacle
Yeah,
for
he literally
more.
like jammed his hand up the thing to like scoop out the last one. And it's like,
I get it now. He was showing that he's into fisting. That's what that was.
oh, you know what? Whatever headcanon you want, you can have.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you want some paper towels?
I can even spread my hands apart.
Oh man. So anyway, of course, Issac is staring like this guy's kind of weird, but I do see marijuana, so I'm interested. And this guy's like, "Hey, I'm even gonna go outside and smoke a little weed." So he goes outside and they smoke a little weed. And while they're outside in the hi, getting to know you, this is my name. Issac asked, like, "Hey, what happened while I was gone? Because like I'm really not into group exercises." And Yvonne says something that I'm assuming is the way that the gays kind of like wink and nod at each other. I can't even imagine having a conversation like this with a straight man. I need Mason to break this down for me.
I don't remember what he said.
Basically, he said that they had an exercise where everyone got blindfolded and had to like hold each other. And if you touched a guy's dick, you had to suck it.
Oh, no, boys are just gross. Like a straight man would make that joke. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no, straight men love talking about each other's dicks. It's super weird.
Do they love talking about sucking each other's dicks?
They will make jokes. Straight men are really weird, Sam.
I just had to know because, like, if a man made that joke to me as a woman, I would have been like, fucking gross pervert. I would have stormed off. So that's why I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this common parlance?
A man saying that to another man is unfortunately normal. Boys are gross, Sam. Do not underestimate our grossness.
I mean, I haven't lived with a man in a very long time, so I'm so off the radar when it comes to men things, but I'm gonna die alone.
You just gotta go to one of those parties. Start feeling around.
If I knew that was the theme of the party to start with, I would so not go.
They call it touch and feel.
Party. Where's your blindfold? Like, oh, never mind. Wrong door.
That's something that they do at the bathhouses in San Francisco, you know.
Oh man. This is the reason why we're always gonna have coronavirus.
People want to touch and suck, you know.
I mean, Issac, even when he left the group activity, he like was caressing all of the walls on the way to the bathroom. And this is
I loved that. I do that.
It is 2022. That kind of behavior is so unhygienic.
No, but like, weren't you ever in school and you would just kind of like be walking and you like trail your hand on the wall? I loved doing that. When I saw that, I was like, wow. That's actually one of those moments where I was watching it when I first watched it and I was like, this really speaks to me in all of the little nuances because a lot of the small things he would do, I would do. And that was one of them.
As a person living in the Panaracea, I can tell you, I watched that thinking germs, 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 gross germs, 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 germs. Like that's all
I would do that today. I wouldn't think about it. I don't know.
People wipe their boogers on walls in high schools. Gross. No, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
More wall for me to feel. That's my touch and feel.
I don't even touch railings for stairs if I can help it.
That I do agree with because railings are really gross, especially right now. But sometimes you gotta, so.
Yeah, like if I have to, like if there's no choice, I will. But if I can avoid it, if I feel secure enough in my ability to balance myself, I try to avoid it. So that's why I was just watching it like with the 2022 lens, like, ew!
You ever like take your sleeve and like jam your hand in it and that's how you'll touch the rail or a doorknob, like through your sleeve? And you're like, the sleeve will get the germs.
If my sleeve is long enough, I will. But yeah, like I said, I try to balance if I can, you know, especially if I'm going up, I won't touch a rail at all. If I'm going down and the stairs are kind of short, I'm like, I'll go ahead and I'll lean in, but I'm gonna find the first antibacterial station I could find.
Oh yeah, when I went to go see Twice, for whatever reason, the stairs were just really steep, and we had been drinking, and I was a little stoned. Okay, I didn't see Twice sober. Who would? It was fun. Anyways, I was walking down the stairs, and I was like, I was like gorilla gripping that rail because I knew I was gonna fall over if I didn't. And immediately afterwards, I ran to the bathroom to like wash my hands because I was like, oh, the filthy railing.
Yeah,
It's
dangerous out there, guys.
It's what?
Yeah. So they're getting to know each other after having a laugh about having to suck dicks. And here comes Emma, the short-haired girl from the party. And she's really digging Isaac, which I get it because he's charming. Like when he's talking to her, he's a charming dude. Like I would feel the same.
Yeah, he's real cute.
Yeah. Well, he's got, I don't know, he's got the chat, as they say in the UK. He's got the banter. And so yeah, he kind of is like, bitch, I'm talking to someone right now.
And she just isn't getting it. And if she is, she's still she's bulldozing her way through this conversation where neither party wants her there.
Yeah. Which, I understand. This guy made out with her at a party. She's thinking he's interested because he literally had his tongue in her mouth.
A Lucas situation.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, there's no exchanging of phone numbers or anything. It's just like it's a one-time conversation between a couple of dudes. But then he gets invited by Emma. Issac gets invited by Emma to do some pre-gaming with her and her friends. And his friends are like, yes, we should absolutely do that because she's got hot ass friends and we're a bunch of horny teenagers. Make this happen for us. But you need to bring beer. So he's like, shit, how am I going to get a hold of some beer? Because I am 16 and you have to be 18 to buy beer in Norway. It just so happens when he gets on the bus, who should come out of the darkness of the bus but hello.
May we add that his obsession with Evan has already begun because we had some scenes of him ferociously trying to find him on social media.
Yes,
and like rewatch, and like the only thing he could find is this one video that a friend of Evan made of like Evan making some weird stop motion Sarah Palin movie. And he just watched it constantly. He then started to watch Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann version, because in the video he was like, oh, my favorite director is Baz Luhrmann. So what does Isaac do to the boy that he doesn't have a crush on? He starts to watch Baz Luhrmann movies, which
he cries watching Romeo and Juliet, which again, this is the reason why I know the person who wrote this is my age, because I remember being a teenager in the 90s when Romeo and Juliet first came out and being like, oh my God, this is what love looks like.
Yeah. But there's another really small thing. This show has a lot of like itty bitty tiny things that I just really like that seem very inconsequential, but I feel like add a lot of atmosphere to the world. When he typed in Romeo and Juliet, he spelled Juliet wrong. And they didn't like correct it. They just had him like, oh, he spelled Juliet wrong. And then he clicks on, you know how in Google, if you spell something wrong, they'd be like, did you mean so-and-so? And then he clicks on the, did you mean so-and-so thing? And it was like a very small, really quick thing that it's like that little shit that you know someone had to have planned out that I really enjoy.
Okay. I think I didn't measure that at all because instead I was looking at the spelling, because the spelling of Romeo and Juliet in Norway is different than it is in America, which I'm assuming that he watched the dub version, but it was like Romeo and Julie, or it was like Romeo O Julie.
I just noticed that he fucked it up and then they had him correct it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Because I also type really fast and I'm a very bad speller. If you follow my Twitter, you'll notice, can't spell. Failed that part of school.
So, he runs into Evan and Evan's like, yeah, I'll buy you beer. So he's like, okay, cool. He's waiting for him outside of the store. And Evan's like, oh, I forgot my ID. Do you mind if we go to my apartment real quick? Again, I have to ask Mason, as the local gay, is this code? Like, if somebody says, hey, I forgot my ID, let's go to my apartment, does that usually mean like, we're going to go do something at my apartment? Because
I think if like you both know that they're gay, yes. But I think at this point, neither really knew each other that well. Like, it wasn't like they met up on Grindr or met at like a gay club or anything. But I would be like, I definitely think it was rude of Evan to invite his friends, you know? Because they had a great time together. I really liked that scene where they went back to Evan's apartment, because it did a really good job of showing how these two people, just like as people, are good at communicating and have good banter with each other. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of boys love where you're like, what do y'all talk about? That's not the plot at hand, you know?
I was just stuck at the fact that like they got to his apartment where he supposedly left his ID, and he didn't go looking for his ID. He was just like, take off your shoes, sit on my couch, let's drink a beer. And I'm like, so you did not mean it. You didn't mean I forgot my ID. You were just like, I just want to get you back to my place.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. Again, I feel like a lot of this show is trying to figure out what counts as flirting and what's regular behavior. I feel like a lot of that happens in this show. And so like there were a lot of different times where behavior would happen. I'd be like, is this flirting or is this conversation?
Right. I guess it can go either way.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's fun. I think that's why this is a fun show. I like a lot of shows that are based on implication. That's why I like Dokusei, because Dokusei was also based on implication. I just feel like this was maybe a little bit more successful at it. But it's, you know, depends on how you read it.
So while he's there smoking weed, talking about Nas, which both of them were saying Nas really weird. And I was just like, what are y'all talking about? Anyway.
They're Norwegian white people.
I know, but like Nas says his name in his raps. That's why I was very confused.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I guess so. I don't know who Nas is, so.
Well, it's fine. You don't have to.
I thought Lil Nas X, and I was like, can't be. He hasn't debuted yet.
So they go in the kitchen to make cheese sandwiches, I think. And if anyone from Norway or from Europe is here watching, I need you in the comment section to explain to me what the fuck was going on, because I don't have a clue.
Well, wasn't the point that they just like they started to make sandwiches and they just kept like jokingly adding random crap on top and then made like just a disgusting sandwich?
That was a thing, but like there's a scene later on where he orders a cheese sandwich from the cafeteria, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the thing that they handed him looked rancid. It looked awful. And that's why I just like want to know, like, what is normally on a European cheese sandwich?
It seems like it's a grilled cheese, but face open, which I don't know how I feel about.
I don't know, because normally a cheese sandwich for us would be cheese, bread, and then most Americans won't eat a cold cheese sandwich. Normally we'll eat a cheese sandwich grilled on the outside of the bread. So the bread is toasted, the cheese is melty on the inside. But yeah, I need to know more about this European cheese sandwich, because I don't know what the fuck they were doing, but both iterations that were shown on screen looked horrible.
Yeah. I don't know what was happening. Also, just cheese sandwiches are gross. So
it was like Jamaican jerk barbecue seasoning, pot magic seasoning, cardamom, cinnamon. I don't know. Maybe at some point they put arsenic on it. Like it was just everything that you could find in the kitchen.
Sprinkle of cocaine.
Yeah, it was terrible. So they're eating these cheese sandwiches that they say taste like balls, which again, a lot of references to male genitalia. And while they're doing that, Issac has been lying to everybody through text message, because he's, again, remember, they went to the apartment so that Elon could get his ID to buy beer. Mm-hmm. And instead, they're hanging out and, you know, having a good time. So he's texting Emma saying, me and my friends aren't coming. He's texting his friends saying, hey, I couldn't find the beer, let's not go. And he's just basically lying to everybody because he's like, I'm with a hookup right now. Mm-hmm. But then who shows up at the front door?
His friends.
Not just his friends, but a very special
friend. His girlfriend.
Yes.
Gotta love that. So,
Yes.
yeah, Evan has a cute girlfriend named Sonia, and Isaac is crushed. His face drops like a brick. It's really
Yeah.
sad. His
So
acting is really good. I just want to say, like, so I have nothing but like amazing things to say about the man who played Isaac. He did it perfectly. Like this series, I'm telling you, I'll say it again. I saw it like at just the right time, and it really touched me. And I think a lot of it was like his acting really sold it.
So he sees that the man he likes has a girlfriend. So of course he's like, okay, I'm misinterpreting the situation. I need to calm down because this is not an available man, which I have to give it to him. I appreciate that you don't have the intention of being a homewrecker initially. But then things change. So where do we go from here, Mason?
Sam, I don't remember. I honestly, I'm really bad at doing like moment by moment of each episode. I don't have that kind of memory.
It's fine. I'll go through it. Okay, so after this happens, there's another pre-party to be planned. And the next pre-party to be planned has to happen at Isac's house because Vilda can't have it at her place because her mom is having a wine party. And of course, Sana's parents like, you're not gonna have no fucking teenagers in our house drinking and having fun. So they have to pregame over at Isac's place, which we didn't talk about how Issac ended up in his place.
Yeah, so he ends up there. Because we didn't watch the seasons before, it's a little spotty, but I guess he had some problems with his parents. His dad left his mom because his mom has like a huge mental health crisis, and dad left his mom. Home life was kind of weird, and I guess he wound up drunk at a gay bar, which he didn't know was a gay bar. And Eskild, who was one of his roommates, was there and basically took him home with him. Not to like have sex, but to just be like, you are young, you need a place to stay, which I like because it kind of gives into like a little bit, it reminds me of just a little bit of like ballroom culture in like New York, where people would be like, oh, your parents threw you out, you have nowhere to go because you're gay. Well, come stay with me. I'll be your mom,
When are we going to review Paris is Burning?
Maybe that's what we should do next.
Because this is literally like Paris is Burning is a phenomenal documentary. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of problematic elements to this documentary. Basically, the fact that the white woman who did the documentary never really gave proper credit or financial benefit to the people who participated in the documentary. Mm-hmm. But in that documentary, a lot of this house of whatever that you see on like Drag Queen, where people say, well, I'm from the house of this or I'm from the house of that. A lot of those houses were initially established as just a safe space for young gay men to congregate once they've been taken out of their home, and they could go to this house and pool resources so that everybody could eat, everybody could have clothing, everybody could basically survive. Yeah.
And that's why the idea of found families is so embedded into queer culture. And I'm telling you, if you have not seen Paris is Burning and you're part of the LGBTQ community, you have to watch it. It is genuinely like required gay viewing.
It is foundational information. There are a few things that we talk about, like that we refer to, and they're so coded into the DNA of queer media that they almost are a given that you'll understand it. This is one of those things.
Oh yeah, like if you've ever watched an episode of Drag Race, 50% of the dialogue is Paris is Burning quotes.
Yeah.
Because reading is what? Fundamental.
I love Venus Extravaganza. Like God help.
They were all so good.
Yeah. Anyway, so he ends up becoming a roommate to Eskild and Lynn because their other roommate, Nora, ran off to London to be with her boyfriend, and that shit didn't work out because it never works out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Nora was the central character of season 2, I believe.
A season I didn't watch, so I don't care. Just saying.
Yeah.
So Eskild meeting Isaac in a gay bar is important to the story because Eskild is like, yeah, I recognize that you're not necessarily ready to claim your truth, but I just want you to know that I know. So when you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah. It's very on the line, because so I was researching this. Apparently in season one ends with Isaac's storyline in season 1 ends with basically everyone realizing that he has a crush on his friend Jonas. And that they had found like gay porn on his phone. So like all of this, it wasn't like Evan was his awakening. It was like this had been a budding thing, and Evan was just like the hottest person he'd ever seen, apparently, and like really drew him in.
Yeah, I did not watch season 1, so don't care. But I
think it's good to know.
I did get the vibe from just what people were saying in context in this season that there were some issues there, because he, at the end of the last episode of the season, he gives an apology to Ava about basically telling lies about her to her boyfriend, who is his friend. And so I'm like, why would he do that?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was like, something must have happened there. Also, just the fact that like out of the friend group, that seems to be the friend he's the closest to, even though the funnest friend in the friend group is Magnus.
Magnus is really fun, but he is also like a bit of a chode. So,
I don't know. Like, okay, the friend group that Issac had, we haven't talked about his friend group, but he's got 3 friends. He's got Madi, Magnus, and Jonas. And Madi to me seems like so one note. And I don't know if it's because maybe this particular writer is not good at writing Black characters, but like he seems very much like, hey, I'm just here to hang out. I'm here to fuck bitches, get high, drink. I don't have any other characteristics about me. But, I'm also not like an asshole. So here I am. Magnus, on the other hand, he just seems like he doesn't know. Like, he's like, I really want a girl. I really want to be around a girl. I would let her step on me, but I just don't know how to get girls.
Right.
And like, I find that to be charming in a way, because he really is clueless. Like,
his
when they
desperation is a little charming. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not like he plans to be mean to a girl, or he wants to like hurt girls, or that he thinks that girls are less than him. He's just like, girls are mysterious, but my dick responds to them. So how do I get these 2 things to link up?
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can appreciate that, because it seems like if a kid like that gets into the right relationship, he could be a really good partner.
Right. I'd watch that season.
Yeah, maybe. And then Jonas, he just seems more like he's with it. Like, out of all the friends, he's like, I see a lot of things that people aren't saying, and I'm noticing things that people aren't really talking about. Whereas Magnus is like, hey, what are we talking about? So I think that's a good friend group to have. It reminds me very much of the friend group from History Make Our Days Count.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Make Our Days Count. I'm back.
So yeah, he is living in this flat share with these other people, and they have the party that night. And the party is a neon party, which I didn't realize that was a trope of coming of age movies until very recently. I was listening to a podcast talking about it, but apparently it is a trope of like coming of age young adult movies to have some scene that involves neon. And if you look at Western coming of age movies, there's always a house party where there's like either neon lights or neon paint, or a club with neon lights or neon paint. Apparently that is like a big thing in coming of age. Even in the Romeo and Juliet movie by Baz Luhrmann, the party where Romeo and Juliet find each other, there's like neon fish tanks.
Is that like a story thing, or is it just like vibes? Because I feel like neon is fun, and a neon party is really fun.
And that's what I think it is. I think that there's something with lately, or at least modern wise, we associate neon with cool.
Yeah, I mean, Euphoria. Look at Euphoria.
Yeah, so like when we talk about neon colors, the adjectives we use are like cool, sexy, fun, possibly a little bit dangerous, like
Yeah.
all of those things. And so I was like, okay, interesting that this scene should take place while it's
Mhm.
neon. So they're at his house with neon paint. He's talking to Emma, and as he's talking to Emma, he realizes like he and her have nothing in common. Like his favorite music is 90s hip hop, her favorite is Justin Bieber.
Did you also catch, so in the episode before when he was talking to Evan, he was like, oh, my favorite rapper is, I forgot who, some
Oh
other
yeah.
90s.
So Evan's favorite rapper is Nas. The shirt that he has on, or the shirt that Isaac has on, I think says Illuminati is me or something.
Yes.
And the album that Nas has, that's one of his most famous albums, is Illmatic.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of like broadcasting like his favorite is now my favorite. Because
Yes.
when he's talking to Emma, she's like, I love Justin Bieber. He's like, oh, I like Nas. He's got this album called Illmatic, and like ill means sick, and then matic for matic. And I'm like, you're such a girl. And I don't mean it in like he acts like a girl. I mean like that is something that in movies girls do all the time with their crushes. Like, oh, you like that? Me too.
Oh my God. In high school, this is really cringy. It was more like when Facebook was a bit more popular. If there was a boy I liked, I would like see his likes on Facebook and I would go like some of those pages to like overlap interests. Super cringe.
That is such a teen thing to do, to be like, what is my crush like? Because I like that too. What's their favorite color? Because I'm going to wear that favorite color. Yeah. And so he's basically like not meshing with this girl at all. And she's not catching it. She's not seeing it. And in walks Evan. And of course, he's with his girlfriend. So being in his feelings and wanting to show that like, I get girls too. He starts to make out with Emma. And here comes Evan. And he's like, okay, guys, enough bonding time. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you walked in the room with your girlfriend. Why is this the very first place you go and you need to make sure you break up their makeup? Like, what's going on here, friends? So they're sitting on the couch together, the three of them, which I don't know where the fuck Sonia went. But they're sitting on the couch, the three of them, and Emma makes a statement, oh, I love gays. They're so fun. And Evan's like, why are you stereotyping? That's the same as saying if you're a Muslim, you're a terrorist. She's like, well, no, it's different because this is a good stereotype. Which
I've gotten that one a lot.
Yeah. And it's important too, because stereotypes and kind of assumptions about people based on their labels is an oft repeated theme in this show. Because later on, Isac's going to have kind of a flip side conversation of this exact same thing with Eskold. And also like Sana, who we didn't talk much about, she experiences a lot of the same thing at school. So she is, we assume, a Muslim. And the micro and macro aggressions she experiences are off the charts.
The teacher whose face we never see and we only see her nipples, like, needs a talking to, because she was fully just kind of racist to Sana.
Yeah, she asked Sana and Issac to work on something together, and she's like, well, I didn't mean to sit next to him. And she's like, girls and boys work together in this country. And it's like, first of all, the girl you're talking to, she is speaking literally the exact same language with you with the exact same accent. She's not new here. So what the fuck do you mean? And then secondly, she's just saying like, I don't want to work with him.
Yeah, but they do get to use her racism against her in the next episode, because she's giving him like, oh, okay, here's the weed. And they're trying to swap it into his backpack. And the teacher's like, hey, what are you guys doing? So Sana really hurriedly just kind of tucks it in her hijab. And the teacher's like, what'd you put in your burqa? And they're like, burqa?
Yeah. So she's like, well, I don't know what you call it, but whatever. Yeah. Which the headless teacher with the boobs, again, being an American, that would never fly in American schools. Never.
Oh, yeah.
A teacher at school in a white t-shirt with her nipples on freeze in front of the whole class. Like girls can't even wear shorts at our schools.
Right.
So,
Anyway,
but anyway,
we end up getting
they
the
have this
best.
little conversation, and Emma, of course, is upset because Yvonne is calling her out. So she's like, whatever, let's go dancing, Issac. So Issac and Emma are on the dance floor dancing, and here comes Evan and his girlfriend Sonia. And then we have the best scene in this entire show. There's no better scene.
It's so good because then Call Your Girlfriend by Robin starts to play. And if you don't know that song, friend.
The talk.
If you haven't heard that song, again, it's a gay classic. You should know it. And Annie should need to know Dancing on My Own. Okay. I'm surprised they didn't pull Dancing on My Own later. They could have. Anyways.
Yeah.
I'm in the corner watching you kiss her. They really could have done Dancing on My Own, but they won't Call Your Girlfriend. And it's basically a song where the girl's like, hey, have you told your girlfriend that you guys are done? Because we're doing this.
Listen, Call Your Girlfriend was the best choice for this scene because of the lyric that you just met somebody new.
Call your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Call Your Girlfriend is okay. We talked about this. I think we were talking about media being appropriated. Robin is from what we know of, she is a cisgender woman. We don't know if she's straight or not. She's never really discussed that because in Europe, a lot of times people don't discuss that. Mm-hmm. But she is a gay anthem queen. Mm-hmm. She has the songs that bring the girls to the pride parades.
Yeah. Seriously, that album where Call Your Girlfriend and Dancing on My Own are on is like a classic.
Body Talk is the album. And I mean, both, I read something and I'm going to tell you about it. It is a tweet that somebody tweeted. And when I read it, I was like, fucking genius. The tweet goes, I am convinced that Call Your Girlfriend and Dancing on My Own exist in the same universe as two sides of the same conversation. Call Your Girlfriend is the girl he's dancing with on the dance floor, whereas Dancing on My Own is the ex who got broken up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, that's fucking right. I see it.
Man, I want to listen to those songs now. That's what I'm going to do when we're done. I'm going to put those songs on.
Also, correction. When we were talking about the slowed down version of Dancing on My Own, I said, look at what the straights are doing to our music. That was inaccurate. Caleb Scott, who did the straight cover or did the slowed down cover, he's actually a gay man. So
sometimes we ruin it for ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, he still shouldn't have slowed it down. Fuck that noise. But it does make it to where it kind of, again, still feeds into the gay fantasy. But
that sucks that the call is coming from inside the house.
But yeah, they're on the dance floor listening to Call Your Girlfriend, making out with their girlfriend while sharing the most intense eye contact. Basically, their girlfriends are physical avatars for what they are trying to do to each other.
Oh, yeah, fully eye fucking. Fully.
Yes. And
it's wonderful.
It is wonderful, but also like I feel terrible for these girls. Yeah. Because they don't see that over their shoulder is the place where their partner wants to be. Mm-hmm. And that's a really sucky situation to be in. One of the things that we have to kind of deal with in watching this is that in almost every scenario in real life, if somebody left their romantic partner for somebody else, we would feel for the person who got left behind. In this situation, they do a really good job of making us have such buy-in for the two main characters that we're like, yeah, fuck that girl, leave her, we don't care. Mm-hmm. You know, like it makes us villainize them, even though, like I said, in any other situation, be like, I feel really bad for those girls. These guys are terrible. Mm-hmm. So I find that very interesting.
Right. So after that, the party's kind of over. Everyone's about to leave to go to the next location. And Isaac is picking stuff up and he gets to the kitchen and Evan's there. It seems like everyone has left. Evan, for some reason, has stayed behind. And they just literally physically get closer and closer. And Isaac can't even look at him because you know that if he looks up, they're gonna kiss.
Also, Evan is telling a very wild story about his girlfriend, which let's talk about that. So Isaac does desire Evan, but he also was like, you have a girlfriend. I'm not going to mess with that. So Evan proceeds to tell him, well, you know, I've been with my girlfriend for 4 years and I can't really leave her because she's got an aluminum foot.
Oh yeah, the fake story.
Yeah. And on the one hand, it's a completely fake story, but it also is kind of true in that he and his girlfriend have been together so long, but he kind of feels like if I leave her, she'll blame herself rather than understanding it's not her, it's me.
Right.
And so I found that to be pretty interesting, because that sometimes is an excuse that people give for cheating on their significant others. Is not that I hate you or I did this to hurt you personally. I did it because I don't know how to disappoint you. So I was hoping maybe I can keep you in a place where you like to be while also putting myself in a place that I want to be.
Right.
It's still shitty behavior, but I could see it as when people say I never meant to hurt you, I think this is what they're talking about.
Yeah. It does take a very sympathetic approach to Evan's eventual cheating, you know?
So they're not doing anything, but they come very close. Like their faces are very close. They're breathing each other's air in a very pre-2020 way. And they hear some noises in the background. And of course, they like jump away from each other. So as that happens, they then have another opportunity to get together. It's getting close to Halloween, and Emma's like, yeah, did you hear Evan and Sonia are going to dress up as God and an angel? You and I can have a couple's costume and we'll pregame at your house. Which pre-gaming, they keep calling it pre-party, and it looks like the most depressing thing ever. It's just like, let's go to your house and get super drunk so that we don't have to worry about if we're going to get a lot of drinks at the party.
Right.
So they're
Usually,
back.
Go ahead. Like, I feel like in America, pre-gaming is a little bit like, oh, you're still kind of getting ready. I feel like it's rowdier.
Yeah.
Like pre-gamed.
Pre-gaming, if you're doing it with like more than 3 people, usually tends to be like loud music, drinking, getting dressed, putting on makeup, clothes, whatever, and then like kind of making noise until you get to the party.
Right. There was one time, I have a pre-gaming story. There was one time a few years ago when I was still working at the movie theater, me and some coworkers were like, we wanted to have a drunk Disney night where we would get super wasted and watch a Disney movie and like yell at the screen, because we all are big nerds and thought that would be fun. We pre-gamed so hard that we forgot to put on a movie. we were like waiting for, because one girl, like she had like, none of us were working that day except for one girl. So like we'd gotten all the drinks. And we're like, well, waiting for her, we might as well pre-game. By the time she got there, we were gone. We didn't even get a movie up.
He's drunk.
Yeah.
So this happens, and they all look fucking pissed. Like, so Evan's got really weird energy when it's the 4 of them at this place. And it looks like Issac is dressed as like Julius Caesar, while Emma's dressed as Cleopatra. Yeah. And then of course Sonia's an angel and Evan is God. But he's dressed like just in a white costume with a white beard and white wig, whatever. Yeah. I don't know what it is that Sonia says, but Sonia says something that like really sets Evan off. And I don't know why he just took it so wrong, but he's like, quit keeping track of me. And it causes him to like get super upset and then ask Issac, what time is it? Because of course Sonia's like mad that she got yelled at, so she goes off to the bathroom upset. Emma, being a good girlfriend, follows her into the bathroom. And so Evan's like, what time is it? And Issac's like, it's 21:21. He's like, okay, cool, let's go. So they get on his bike and have one of our classic gay scenes of bike riding to music. It's in all the best gay media. It's in I Promised You the Moon. It's in the movie that Owen was in, Do the Movie. Like, all of the best gay media is riding on the back of somebody's motorcycle or the back of somebody's bicycle. It is just a thing.
Hold tight, Don't put
And
your
they're,
hands there, put them here, you know.
yeah, and they're writing to an 80s song that is a perfect choice. It is Tears for Fears, Head Over Heels, which is one of my favorite 80s songs of all time. And it has the most perfect lyrics, at least the first verse. The second verse gets iffy, but the first verse of that song is literally ideal for this situation. So you go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to pull up the lyric just because I want to read a little section of the lyrics.
Okay. So they're riding their bike. They eventually get to a house that Evan makes it seem like it might be his, and they sort of crawl through a window and there's a pool. And they just kind of go swimming. They're basically recreating the scene in the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, where Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes are swimming in the pool at the party. And that's sort of where like a lot of their infatuation begins, and it parallels here. And it's where underwater, much like another classic trope, the first kiss is underwater. And I love that the first kiss, they're doing like a hold your breath contest. And Evan kisses Isaac, and Evan's like, that's no fair, you cheated. So they go back under, and this time Isaac kisses Evan, and then it's like, yeah, we're gonna get some good stuff now.
Yes. And in the pool, in Romeo and Juliet, Claire Danes is wearing a white angel costume. Leonardo DiCaprio is wearing a silver chainmail knight's costume. Mm-hmm. In the scene from SKAM, Issac is wearing a silver gray shirt and Evan is wearing a white costume. Mm-hmm. So literally, one is the Juliet, one is the Romeo, mm-hmm. which and they're listening to Desiree's Kissing You, which is on the soundtrack to Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet as well. That's the song playing in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is like a complete reenactment, which is why I say the person who created this is my age, because mm-hmm. they're like beat for beat. Anyway, this is the first verse or first couple verses of Head Over Heels. I wanted to be with you alone and talk about the weather, but traditions I can trace against the child in your face won't escape my attention. You keep your distance via the system of touch and gentle persuasion. I'm lost in admiration. Could I need you this much? Oh, you're wasting time, just wasting time. Something happens and I'm head over heels. I never find out until I'm head over heels. Something happens and I'm head over heels. Don't take my heart, don't break my heart, don't throw it away.
Those are really perfect lyrics for them.
Right?
That's so cute.
So definitely it's kind of like I have big feelings for you. Please don't hurt me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after the pool and the kissing, which turns out they had broken into a random stranger's house, which I'm just like, what? I'm sorry, but like, again, I am such a bad romantic. Like the things that I find romantic, no one else does. Like if you pay my cable bill, that's super romantic. This shit, I'd be like, you almost got us put in jail for breaking and entering. Don't call me. Mm. Yeah. So anyway, after that, they have a cozy day in at Isac's place, and it is just two boys in sweatshirts, kissing and smoking and cuddling and laughing and just having the times of their life. Girlfriends be damned.
Yeah. It's so nice.
Yes.
But like, he didn't tell his roommates, and all of his roommates, and Eskild's like, girl.
Yeah. Like you got a man in there. But yeah, they're really doing that thing. And Sonia is still a factor. She's not gone yet. He has not broken up with her. She's still there. Right. But he's just like, I don't care. I want to be with you. Maybe you feel the same way about her as I feel about Emma. Like, she's just somebody to use as a smokescreen, as a beard, so I can get over it. So in the midst of this happening, Ivan leaves after they've fallen asleep with each other. And of course, the roommate's like, we saw your man leave, wink, wink, wink. And they don't see each other again until the next day at school. And he's been looking for him all day.
Mhm.
And we find out that Ivan has gone to Sonia and broken up with her because he's like, I don't want to cheat on
Mhm.
either of you. I want to be with you. So I told her, get gone. It's just me and you.
Mhm.
And then Isaac says something. And it's one of those things where, you know, we sometimes say stuff because we don't see the world from every perspective. Like, unless you lived
Mhm.
everybody's life, you don't always recognize that you're using ableist language or that you're saying something discriminatory because it doesn't feel
Mhm.
that way in the moment. So Yvonne mentions about like meeting the parents. And he's like, do you think your parents would like me? And Isak says, well, I don't know about my mom because my mom is crazy. So I don't hang out with them or with her anymore because I don't need crazy people in my life.
Mhm. And I somewhat see where he's coming from because like it's been established that his mom just like sends him very long Bible verses. I wouldn't want any part of that either.
Yeah, which I said crazy, which is ableist language. I should have said mentally ill because he says mentally ill. Um, so I apologize. But it is one of those things where he assumes that the person he's talking to has normal mental health. So
Mhm.
he doesn't think he's saying something offensive to someone. He thinks he's talking to someone who is in the exact same
Mhm.
physical and mental condition as himself.
Yeah.
So he doesn't feel like what he's saying is offensive. And this gets back to the conversation we were having before about stereotyping and how a lot of times we don't think that certain stereotypes are harmful, but they can be. And they can be
Mhm.
harmful in that they make us have an assumption about who a person is without taking into account their personal experiences, their humanity. Making the assumption, I don't need people with mental health issues in my life, is
Mhm.
assuming that every person with mental health issues is untreated, every person with mental health issues is dangerous, will
Mhm.
try to make problems for you, is someone who is uncurable and unhelpful, and they are just too much to handle. And there are a lot of mental health conditions that can be treated, that can be managed. There are people who live very conventional lives while dealing with mental health. There are other people who don't, but
Mhm.
it is something to where the default setting for society is straight, cisgendered, and free from all defect
Mhm.
as diagnosed by the medical community. And it is one of those things that so many people in this show battle. Sana has to battle assumptions about her religion. At one point, Isaac says, you're good at science. Why do you believe in all this religious bullshit? You know,
Mhm.
your religion doesn't like homos and hot dogs. Like, what the fuck is up with that? And
Mhm.
she's like, well, if we're going with science, there is a biological dead end to homosexuality. So let's talk about that. Or can we just
Mhm.
agree that there's just some things that we don't understand,
Yeah.
you know?
Donna
And
honestly had some bars this season.
Sana,
She would come in, drop some like nuggets of wisdom and like leave.
the three MVPs of this show, honestly, are Eskeld, Sana, and Jonas. Those are the
Yeah.
three. Those are the three. But yeah, like it's just constantly thinking that there's one way to exist. And
Mhm.
there's not. There's multiple ways to exist. And having more empathy for people is a great starting point to being able to understand those multiple planes of existence, which
Mhm.
I find also fascinating too, because while they're in bed together, they have a discussion about parallel universes and
Mhm.
how in a parallel universe, everything could be the same except for one thing changed. And that's kind of the thing when it comes to stereotypes. There may be some things that we call generalities that we think can be assigned to everybody, but even if all things seem the same, there's always going to be one difference. And that one difference
Mhm.
is the person behind those eyes experiencing that life. And I think that's something that we take for granted quite often.
Right.
Yeah. So as soon as he says, like, I don't fuck with my mom anymore because she's got mental health issues, you can literally feel Yvonne shrink back.
Oh yeah.
And he says, it would have been, my parents would have loved you. He specifically says, would,
Mhm.
because at that point he's kind of like, but they're not gonna know you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after that, he's like, yeah, we're taking things too fast. Let's slow down. And
Mhm.
Isak's like, the fuck? I'm ready to go. Like, we
Mhm.
spent the weekend making out at my house. You didn't dump your girlfriend. Like, I thought we were in it together. And he doesn't realize what deep shit he's in until he goes to a party because his friends are like, hey, we heard Emma's having a party across town. You guys know each other. Take us to this party. And so they go to the party, even though he doesn't really want to go, but he sees that Ivan is in there. And he sees that Ivan is in there and he's like, I need to talk to him. And so he manages to like, Isaac manages to worm his way into the party. But of course, his friends, they don't know why he's able to get in or like what
Mhm.
he's going there for. And he sees Emma, and Emma's like, you have some nerve being here. And he's like, listen, I'm sorry. I know I haven't been the best. She's like, you know what? I don't even care if you don't like me, but I really am upset that you're gay and you led me on.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I wanted to ask you, Mason, how do you feel about what Emma does after this? We don't see her do it, but we hear about what she does after this. After this, she basically tells the school that Isaac is gay.
Yeah, I think like him leading her on is bad. I genuinely think outing someone is worse. I think there's way more danger to be had when you out someone than it is just to be like, and we went out a few times, went on a date or two, and it didn't work out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So you
Uh
guys don't know this because me and Mason don't talk about this very often, but we are avid Reddit readers. Like
oh
when it
yeah.
comes to Reddit, am I the asshole? It's me and Mason for life.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one there was one that came out, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, of a lady who she was asking, is she the asshole for not accepting her brother and her brother's boyfriend? And the story was her and her brother were part of this church and she met a boy there and they started dating in high school. They dated all throughout most of high school,
Mm-hmm.
into college, even lived together. And then once he graduated college, she found out that he had been seeing her brother the whole time.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah. This is a very different situation though.
This is very different, but in the am I the asshole, she finds out that basically her brother and this man had concocted an idea of basically making her the beard because he had a super strict religious family and he needed their support to get through school so that he could get his education paid for and then escape. And so later on, the brother and the former boyfriend are still together. She's got kids, and her parents want her to reconcile with her brother and this man. And she's like, no, because the entire time we were dating, we were actually dating. Like we were having sex together, we lived together. Like I thought I was going to marry this man. And so she's like, am I the asshole for not accepting my brother and this man? And it is a very different situation because what they did to this one was awful. But if we were to extrapolate the situation between Isaac and Evan out, especially from Isaac, who seems very reluctant to be out of the closet, how far do you think that Isaac would have taken it to have someone to kind of be his scapegoat so that he wouldn't have to let others know he was gay?
Not far.
I wonder, because every single time he is confronted with the idea of his homosexuality, he just can't really take the idea that he is a gay man. Like he even says, like, I'm just a little gay at one point.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, like, if he didn't have, I guess, the pressure to come out or people confronting him because Emma outed him, how long would he have kind of presented himself outwardly as straight? Not that he had to be anything other than what he wanted the public to know, but I do wonder, like, how long would he have hid his and Evan's relationship?
I don't know. It didn't seem like the rumor mill was horrible, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't like people were calling him slurs. It was just like one girl was like, heard you were gay. Is that true? Which, by the way, Vilde, what the fuck? That was really inappropriate to ask, you know?
So Again, I don't care about other seasons of this show, but from what I understand, there is a pivotal scene or two in season 4 that explains why Vilda is the way she is, and it makes people a lot more sympathetic for her previous actions. But that's not my ministry, so I'm not going to get into that. But
Oh,
apparently, there's some issues with her home life that explain the reason why she just has absolutely no social training.
which is weird because her whole thing is like to run the social events.
Yeah, but she's weird about that too. Like when she has to talk to people, she gets super overwhelmed and she just like says, she lets the intrusive thoughts out of her mouth.
She
Like
like,
at the one point when Emma's like, "Hey, you should come pregame with me," she's like, first year girls can't be taking second year boys because then who are we going to sleep with?" That is totally an inside conversation that she lets out of her mouth. And because Magnus is like the naive baby that he is, he's like, "I'll fuck you."
yeah. And then they do. Wonderful.
Closure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
She doesn't
go ahead.
ask. She tells. She dictates, you know.
Very much, very much. She's like, these are one-sided conversations. I speak, you listen.
Right. But I don't know. I guess I don't think it would go on for very long. And my reason being is because he very quickly told his parents, you know?
He did tell his parents fairly soon after they got together, once they agreed to be together. But it took a minute for them to get there. And even like with his friends, it took him a while to talk to his friends about what was going on. We don't even mention the fact that like in the course of him dealing with like, are we not a couple with Evan? He really is a dick to his friends. His friend Magnus has a birthday.
He skips the birthday. He pushes Mahid later after the party that we just talked about. He's just ditching them all the time. He's clearly like in a mood, you know? But he finally does go and he talks to Jonas. They get kebabs, which not what we Americans know as a kebab. They were eating out of a cone, it seemed.
Okay, so the kebab that they're eating, it's in pita, but it's wrapped like an ice cream cone. So there's pita on the outside and then all the stuffing stuff like meat and sauces and everything on the inside. And then they wrap it in like a newspaper or a wax paper and they eat it like that instead of eating it the way that we would normally eat it wrapped up.
On a stick.
Yeah.
I prefer their version. I think I'd rather eat it with like a fork and like you have more, it seems like there's just like more sauces and stuff instead of just like meat on a stick, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm
so I know after I watched this, I'm like, is there any Greek delivery places? There are none near me.
Sad. Maybe Mediterranean.
I looked, like the closest place was a place that was like a 45-minute delivery away. And like, never mind.
Well, at least there's still good food in Colorado. You have Culver's. When in doubt, go to Culver's. No. Sam does not get the obsession that I have with Culver's, and that's fine.
I'll just put it to you this
blood
way.
runs deep.
There are two kinds of Americans. There are the Americans who like mayo on their sandwiches, and there are the Americans who can't stand mayo. I feel like the Culver's group are the people who say that mayo is actually a sauce.
Yes, mayo is so good. Mayo is so good. A sandwich without mayo? Are you kidding me? Mayo on a burger? Are you kidding me? So tasty.
Mayo is a neutral to me. So I'm never like crazy about mayo. I'm never gonna say like no to mayo if it's on a sandwich, but like some people are like, listen, there is a difference between Miracle Whip and Hellmann's.
There is, and Hellmann's is better. And okay, like whenever I go to like a sandwich shop, like a Jimmy John's, a Potbelly's, when I go there, I'm like, I usually get like a turkey sandwich with onion, lettuce, and I always say a lot of mayo. And I always say, not because usually what they'll do is they'll take the knife out of the dart and go swoop, swoop. And I'm like, no, I want a lot of mayo. I want you to scoop that shit, then swipe it, you know?
See, and to me, mayo is just a way to keep the bread from being dry. That's all I feel about mayo. Every other sauce has personality, like ranch, heavy, but mayo, I'm just like, that's just to keep the sandwich from being dry. That's the only reason why it's here.
And it's tasty. Anyways.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about Culver's. Culver's is mayonnaise to me. Take it or leave it.
It's so good. Have you ever had a concrete mixer? They're so
I'm
good.
lactose intolerant. Anyway, so he's talking to his
Lame.
friends about the gay situation, and Evan has been leaving him notes. Because after Evan said, I wanted to slow things down, and he sees Evan kissing Sonia, he's kind of like, well, fuck it. I guess we're not together.
Mhm.
So Evan leaves him notes. He leaves a note in his clothes while he's in gym. He leaves a note in his locker. And the note that he leaves in his clothes in gym, he finds while he's talking to Jonas about the situation.
Mhm.
And it's a parallel universe note, because he said that parallel universe thing to him while they were cuddled together. And Evan really latched onto that. And so he makes these little comics, and each of them is like reality versus parallel universe, reality versus parallel universe.
Mhm.
So he ends up having a text with Evan about a comic that he left in his clothes saying, thank you for the comic. Evan doesn't respond, but he leaves another comic saying, like, in a parallel universe, I would have responded with this.
Mhm.
So he's talking to his friends about it, and his friends are like, hey, this is how you deal with that. Since you're a homie, we're going to give you relationship advice. You tell him when he's ready to talk and he doesn't have a girlfriend, that's when he can come over here. But until then, you aren't going to talk to him anymore. Which I'm like, look at the girlfriends getting it together.
Yeah, they gave him really good advice in that scene.
Yes, it worked so well that man was outside his door, and he was like, all right, get your shit, let's go. I got dick coming.
He pushed them out real fast.
Yes. And they were supposed to talk. Talking did not happen.
No. They immediately started. He wasn't even like 1 foot in the door before they started making out.
Yes. And so the next day, Evan is up in the morning making breakfast, talking to the roommates, like just whole hog in this situation. Like, we're boyfriends now. We're going to make this thing happen. And for a minute there, it is like whirlwind. Like, we're together. We're kissing all the time. I'm taking you here. I'm taking you there. Let's get a hotel room. I'm so excited to be with you. Let's screw, be naked. Let's get married. Like, he's doing it. And then it starts to get weird. It had already kind of been getting weird. Like, there were some conversations they were having where it kind of felt like Evan was talking about something that Issac wasn't really catching.
Yeah, he kept saying like vaguely depressing statements, and Issac would be like, don't say that,
Yeah. So they have this conversation about like how I'm going to marry you butt naked, and I'm going to call for Princess Vivian, and like, just Evan is scripting kind of their life. And Isac's like, I don't get it. Like, I'm not catching that reference.
Yeah.
And Evan's also got a lot of like restless energy. Like, he keeps getting up in the middle of the night. So at one point he gets up in the middle of the night, completely nude, and is like, I'm headed to McDonald's, and leaves the hotel room completely nude.
Yeah.
And of course, Issac freaks the fuck out, because he's like, what are you doing? Like, it's one thing to be whimsical and creative and fun and maybe a bit spontaneous, but like, you'll get arrested in these streets butt naked. Somebody's gonna hurt you. You have literally no defense.
Yeah, they're like, he's gonna get beat up.
Yeah.
And then Isaac puts on his clothes, runs out. He has Evan's clothes with him. He calls Sonia. Sonia's like, fine. So he ends up meeting up with Sonia. She's like, please have him. By the way, he's manic right now. He doesn't love you, and he never will. And then she like bumps him in the shoulder and blows past him. And you're like, oh, damn.
Yes. And it is conflicting, because obviously Sonia has hurt feelings because Evan had dumped her for another person, and that's never a good feeling. But also, like, people in the midst of manic situations really do sometimes do things that are completely out of character. I know that, like, I've had people in my life that have had situations that were the opposite of what I knew them to be when they were in their right mind, and were so the opposite that you almost felt like you didn't know this person to begin with, because it's so out of character. So a story about my ex from a long time ago. I had a friend who she was a fun girlfriend. We had kids the same age. This is back when my daughter was super, super little, and we would hang out. And my ex-husband was going through one of his manic phases. And I didn't realize that was happening because the way that mania is portrayed in the show is very authentic, is that it creeps up and it's not like a smooth break. It's like things just ratchet. And I was hanging out with this friend a lot because I was having problems at home with my husband. And I would just hang out with her to get away from the home, but also somebody else that had a kid. So my child was occupied. We could watch them together, chat, drink coffee, eat burgers, whatever. And one night he got really upset and he grabbed the phone from me when I was talking to her. And he's like, "You're just upset because you wanted to fuck me and you can't. So that's why you're trying to poison my wife's mind against me and tell her about the time in the parking lot when you offered to suck my dick." Like it was wild. And it was so out of character because the way he was talking to this woman was like, "You're just a dirty whore, you're a bitch," like all this stuff. A way that I had never heard him talk to anyone. He had never talked to me like that. I'd never heard him reference other women this way. Like it was as if he had turned off the church boy persona that he had the entire time we were dating, married, had kid together, and it turned on like this like super misogynistic rapper persona out of nowhere. And I remember thinking like, what the fuck is going on here? And so I packed up my child, left the house that night. And it was because he was in a manic phase. And he apologized later on. It's like, "I'm sorry. I don't know what got into me. I don't normally ever talk to anybody like that." But his mania was related to schizophrenia. And so when that happened, it was basically him believing that she was trying to indoctrinate me to go against him and to take away his child. And so all of the negative emotions and everything else were coming out in that moment and manifesting into this super toxic, horrible behavior. And we're no longer together because I, unlike Issac, could not deal with it at all. And I had to completely remove myself from it. I mean, I had a young child at the time, and I'm like, I can only be concerned about one person at a time, and the person I'm choosing is my child. But it is one of those things where like prior to that, things were kind of rough between us, and I was leaving the house more and more often to kind of get away from it, but I did not realize how bad it was until that moment.
I cannot hear you for some reason. Could you repeat that last sentence? I don't know what's happening. I just can't hear you anymore.
Did the internet freeze?
It might have. Okay, I hear you now. I'll cut that little section out.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah. So, Sonia's saying that he would never go out with Issac, or he's not really in love with Issac. It's not that he wouldn't necessarily be sexually attracted to Issac or he wouldn't want to have a relationship with him, but this "I'm going to marry you and we're going to live naked" type of thing, those portions are probably not really what he would do. But it's very hard. Go ahead.
And that's exactly what Magnus says the next day, a few days later, when they're talking about it.
Which is why we love our boy Magnus.
Okay, Magnus also had a few like moments too. He asked which one's the boy and which one's the girl when they have sex, I think he meant it out of like genuine curiosity. He's just like ignorant, but it was like,
Yeah, and he said as much. He's like, "You both have dicks, so how does this work?" Like he literally meant like, my references for sex are stick and hole. But if you have two sticks, how does that work?
Right.
But he didn't say it like that. He just said, which one's the guy, which one's the girl, because he doesn't know. And he was like quick to say like, "I literally mean, what are the mechanics?"
Right.
But yeah, Magnus apparently has a mother who has mental health issues. And he's like, "When my mom's having a manic phase, she does wild stuff, but she's still her. And she's still awesome. And she's just like everybody else. She just has these times that she goes through,
Mhm.
which makes me wonder why Isaac doesn't talk to Magnus more. I mean, maybe he talks to Jonas more because there was like a sexual component, like he had an attraction, but like it feels like him and Magnus should be best friends because they are dealing with very similar familial issues.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. So, after having the conversation with Magnus about this, he has a conversation with Sana. And Sana is like, listen, I wanted to talk to you about the conversation we had about homosexuality in science. And she's like, I read a couple articles saying how homosexuality does play a part in evolution. And also just letting you know that like in my religion, yeah, there's some things that religion says that aren't great. But in case anybody tries to challenge you, religion also says that like no one can judge anybody else. We're all deserving of the right to be who
Mhm.
we are because we're made in God's image. And Evan sends that to his mother. So he talks to his dad very briefly because he had told his dad he had a boyfriend, and the dad's like, bring your boyfriend to the concert because they're going to a Christmas concert. And he's like, Dad, um, I was just kidding. I don't have a boyfriend. And then he's like, actually, we broke up.
Mhm.
And so he's at the Christmas concert with his mom and his dad, which his mom, surprisingly, he tells his mom about him being gay. And his mom's like, the minute you were born at 21, you have been the love of my life, and nothing will change that.
Yeah. I had very strong reactions to both those scenes. The mom surprised me, the dad disappointed me. The dad disappointed me because when he first tells him, his dad's first text back is, "Are you joking right now?" Which, let me tell you, if you're a parent, don't do that. You need to comfort first, ask questions later with this sort of thing. Comfort first, make sure they know that you're okay with it, and then maybe ask the questions that as an adult you're going to think about that you feel are appropriate, you know.
Yeah, but I think that also, his dad's perception of gay people probably is a big reason as to why his dad would respond with, "Are you joking?" Because the way that Isaac sees gay people, which he talks to Eskil about it, is like,
Mm-hmm.
you guys are super flamboyant and you're way out there and
Mm-hmm.
you're feminine, you're like all these things that I'm not. And I think that his dad probably tells him like, you're not gay because gay people are this. And so you
Mm-hmm.
saying that you have a boyfriend, that's got to be a joke because you're not mincing, you're not
Mm-hmm.
feminine, you're a boy's boy, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those things that like as an adult I understand why the dad responded that way, but as a gay person I'm like, you did not respond in the appropriate manner, you know.
Right.
um, and even
Yeah.
his dad like is like when he's like, when everyone's on the phone with him and he's like, yeah, we did have a thing but it's kind of over now, the dad's just like, I guess like you sad or anything. It doesn't seem like he really has a vested interest in this. So
I
I
think
was
that
disappointed
him and
in
his
that.
dad have a bad relationship though, because his dad does text him as like, you never talk to me. And I know you're mad that I left your mom, but your mom's been having problems. So, like their family dynamic is a broken dynamic
Oh yeah,
all
it's in
together.
shambles right now.
So like I don't think that his dad even necessarily knows how to comfort him.
Yeah. Um, like there's that scene in the beginning where his dad's like, hey, you want to come have dinner with me? And he doesn't even say yes or no. He just says, I need rent money. Which, man, if I did that to my dad, no, it wouldn't end well for me.
Your
uh,
dad would be like, you could have asked me over dinner.
yeah. Could have gotten a free meal out of it, asshole. Now you're getting no money. Go work at McDonald's.
Yeah. But it was just one of those things where like their family is a broken family and there's a lot of things that they don't talk about, a lot of assumptions they have about each other, especially with his mom being super religious too. I imagine that there's a lot of self-shame. And I like the fact
Yeah.
that when him and Iskald talked about this and Iskald's like, I know what you said and you meant every word you said and I'm offended. And I'm offended because if it wasn't for people who you feel are like gay, you couldn't be accepted by the people who accept you now.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have the rights.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's it right there. That's
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why every queer person needs to support trans people, because we have rights because trans people started that shit. Stonewall was a lot of trans women, a lot of queer Black trans women.
I mean, there are certain things that we try to control. Like I tend to code switch. The way that I speak with my family and the way I speak with other Black people aren't necessarily the way I speak around white people or the way I speak at my job. I tend to
Mhm.
have kind of a customer service voice at the job. I don't use the N-word at my job, and some of the slang I might use with other people that doesn't come to my employment. But when I'm
Mhm.
around my family, all those things are present. And the reason why I feel the need to do that is because I can't hide my brown skin, but I can conform my personality to make the people around me comfortable.
Mhm.
And I typically engage in respectability politics in that manner.
Mhm.
However, there are certain Black people that they can't do that. For instance, I'm able to code switch because I grew up in a lot of very different environments with people who spoke in very different ways. So I
Mhm.
never developed a really deep accent. So I lived in Germany as a kid. I lived in El Paso for many years. I lived in East Texas for many years. I went to predominantly white schools. So it's
Mhm.
easy for me to put on that accent. But there are Black people who live in deep South towns with majority Black schools around Black people all the time, and they have a more difficult time code switching, and they can only
Mhm.
be who they are. And respectability politics will tell you that those Black people are lesser than because they're not able to assimilate to white culture, and therefore they're not as entitled to as many opportunities for education, for employment, for credit
Mhm.
building, all of those things. And if it wasn't for those people who were judged as being the least of us, then I wouldn't have the rights I have, because they had a reason to shout and scream and ask. Whereas I've been allowed to be comfortable. So I don't
Mhm.
sometimes see it as a problem. Whereas the people who they can't hide who they are, and they're immediately discriminated because of the things that they can't hide or they can't change, they have a reason to say, I have to speak about this because I can't be anything than what I am right now.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's the same way for civil rights, it's the same way for gay rights, it's the same way for women's rights. Some of us just can't hide.
Yeah. I'm definitely a much less and white version of it. But like the way I talk to my mom is very different than the way I interact with my dad, because my dad's made it very clear, and my stepmom has made it very clear that being more naturally, I'm a little bit more flamboyant is okay. Whereas in my mom, that's, I have very specific memories of my mom telling me not to walk like a certain way, can't have a sissy walk, have to sit a certain way, So when I'm with my mom, I act different.
And it's very hard to see someone with the privilege of being able to turn it off, then tell you that you are the problem when you
Mm-hmm.
know that it's not that I'm the problem, it's that the oppressive systems that we operate underneath are the problem, but
Mm-hmm.
you're getting by in that system and I'm not, and
Right.
therefore you feel the right to critique me.
Yeah. It was honestly the first time I've ever seen that conversation had in a TV show. And I thought it was really great because honestly, at the time that I watched this, I was really struggling with that. I was a bit more on Isaac's side.
Mhm,
And there's just a lot of internalized homophobia that comes with it.
mhm. And if we're talking about human beings, if we go base, if we don't talk about your race or your disability or where you live or the language you speak, if we just talk about humans, I think we can all agree that as long as we're not hurting other human beings or creating hurtful things that would impact other human beings, we have the right to be left alone.
Hmm.
And I think that that's something that we need to err on the side of more and more as a society. We keep telling ourselves that, well, if you have this behavior, it's going to impact this person over here. But really and truly, is it? Is
Hmm.
it? And it's not. It's not. But the systems of oppression that we live under, they codify us and they take away our base humanity and they sort us into groups. And they tell us just by virtue of being a part of a group, you are harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives the system the excuse to treat us as less than.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just think that it's really, I feel for Isaac. Like, I definitely, the actor who plays him, I can't imagine the emotional weight that he put on his shoulders every day trying to play this role, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to consider that, like, your character is not just in that moment, your character is also the combination of every experience you believe your character has had.
Right.
And he does a really good job of showing that conflict without being corny or having to explain it via words. You see it play across his face. Like,
Yeah.
all of these things have come into play and has made me this person who is a confident straight guy, if I have to pretend to be straight, but also a very nervous and very shy gay man when
Mm-hmm.
I'm approaching something I actually desire and want.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of good conversations happening.
He's at the Christmas concert with his family and he gets a text from Ivan, which is very disturbing. So after he found out that Ivan was manic, he did some research of his own to try to figure out a little bit more about the situation. He had the conversation with Magnus about, like, sometimes you have the high and then you have the drop.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a text from Ivan that just does not sit well with his spirit.
Yeah. It's a lot of apologizing, but almost like over apologizing to a point where it's like, oh, he's overthinking everything. He's in a depressed state. I should go help him. But I did notice that he ends the message with "love you." And I was like, oh, they really do love each other.
You're focused on the wrong thing.
Anyways, yeah. Evan's like, fuck it. And he like just runs out. He goes, it's all slow-mo. They meet part of the text was saying like, oh, I'm sitting at the bench where we first met and I'm just thinking about you. So of course that's where Isaac goes. Evan's there. They kiss. There's some really bad editing that ruined the moment for me. And then the episode ends.
So the church where they meet at, going back to Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, the big death scene for Romeo and Juliet takes place in a church decorated very similarly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was another nice parallel with the story. Also, gosh, people in Europe, you have no idea how privileged you are. Your churches are decorated with beautiful old art that's super impactful and has tons of emotion. Our churches look like Costco's with pews.
It's sad.
Really,
It's like a cheesecake factory.
yeah, there's just no culture to our churches here. And I'm so jealous, because if I could go to a place like that to go to church, I would be there. But the churches we go to, like, they could be basically cafeterias.
Yeah. European churches are like high art. American churches are the dollar store version.
Yeah, the Dollar Tree version.
Yeah.
So after he and Evan get together and he basically says, Evan, you are not alone. I'm here for you. He actually calls Sonia and asks for help. And Sonia's like, listen, I'm sorry that I told you he'd never love you. I was upset because I was losing somebody that I cared about. But just know that, like, just like anything in life, if it's hard, scale it back. Instead of trying to conquer it a year at a time, a month at a time, a week at a time, even a day at a time, sometimes an hour at a time, minute by minute. But just, instead of trying to put this pressure on you that this has got to be a thing that's going to last forever, just try to work your way through this moment and just keep on working your way through these moments. And I think that is some of the advice you have to have when you're dealing with someone who has a compromised mental health situation, is that, they're in a situation that is not forever. They're a manic phase is exactly what it is, an episode. And when the episode is over, just like a television show, it's on to the next thing. And so you have to find a way to work through those episodes if you have the intentions of staying with that person.
Right. And it seems like they started to develop ways for them to work through that, which was nice with all right, for this 1 minute, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play this little game, I appreciated that, like, all of Isaac's housemates contributed to helping Evan, because he kind of just stayed there for what seemed like a couple days. He didn't go to school, but Which I get, I've definitely skipped a lot of classes my third year of college for similar reasons. So I've been there. And
going backwards also, remember when I said that like Evan made the statement, I forget how young you are, even though you're apart in school, you can infer from that Evan probably had a really big manic period that caused him to lose a year of school.
that could very well be. Yeah. Where was I going with that? Oh, I really liked when they got home. Isaac gets home and Evan's playing video games with Lynn, who was also described to be depressed much earlier in the series. And I just thought that was nice that like, I'm glad that these two people were both feeling bad that day and found some comfort in each other, even if it was just playing a video game,
And I like the idea of Isac's house being like the sad gay house. I don't know why, but that seems fun.
It is. Everyone in that house is sad and gay, except for Nora, I think.
It's not too late to change your mind. Nora Lynn's right there.
Yeah, and Eskild is house mother. It's the house of Eskild. They're hunting the nearest ball,
So yeah, they just have a good dynamic, and at the end of it all, there's the Christmas party, and Magnus finally gets a chance with Vilde.
In the weirdest, worst, disgusting conversation ever. They're standing at the Christmas tree. Vilde puts up like an ornament with like a cat on it. And Magnus is like, oh, you like cats? She's like, yeah. And he goes, I like them too. And she just goes, meow. And he's like, what was that, baby? And she goes, meow. And then he's like, can we fuck? And she's like, we can fuck. I don't know. The meowing really got to me. The meowing
was weird, but they're two people who don't have all the social cues. And so it was good that they got together because I feel like they will understand each other.
Yes.
Yeah. And also like whoever that fucking bitch was that was sitting at the table with them decorating stuff and making penises, fuck that bitch. I was really upset because I'm like, here you are, a fat bitch, and you have the nerve to be talking about you're jealous. It's like, no, she's not jealous. She's just trying to let you know you're going to get expelled from school because you're latched onto your boyfriend's dick all the fucking time.
Right.
Like you're even at the Christmas party painting dicks. Like, girl, get over it.
Yeah. And it ends with Isaac having a conversation. Well, okay, so first of all, Evan and Isaac are gonna go meet Evan's mom. So we're really moving this along in terms of their relationship. And it ends with Isaac having a conversation with Ava, a person that he has not spoken to at all this season. And I had to Google who she was. She was the girl. Her once. Yes, because we were at her party in the first episode.
Yeah.
Ava is Jonas's ex that he kind of feels responsible for kind of breaking them up, which she said he wasn't, but we didn't see season 1, so I don't know the truth of that is. And he says something that I really, really like, because I think a lot of boys' loves are like, oh my God, we're gonna be happy and in love forever. I think that's cute and I like that. But I also like that this ended where she's like, how's it going? You guys seem like you're super madly in love. And he's like, yeah, last week was bad. This week's been great. I don't know what next week's gonna hold, but at the end of the day, I'm really glad that I met him because I feel like I've been changed for good. And it reminds me of one of my favorite songs in any Broadway musical, For Good from Wicked, where Glinda and Elphaba saying, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And that's how I feel about Sam, that because I've met Sam, I have fully been changed for the better. Because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And that's as mushy as I'm gonna get today. But yeah, I just thought that was a really sweet message to end on. And when we first started, Sam's laughing because whenever we do these, when Sam jumps in, I'm already playing a song that I find topical, that I'm like, either it's a new K-pop song and I'm like, we gotta talk about this. But today I was playing Loathing, or not Loathing, What Is This Feeling from Wicked. So, and I told Sam, we're going to bring it back. And I did.
You did. I thought this was a really great watch. It's one of the better pieces of media that we've ever reviewed on this channel. I would say it's still right below I Promised You the Moon and I Told Sunset About You, just because like cinematography wise, those two are outstanding. But if we're talking story wise, this is easily top 2 or 3, because again, the conversation about mental health and how that impacts a relationship, and then just all of the little aside that without having watched any other season, you can tell how much was going on in the background and how that impacted these people and their ability to communicate with one another. And I really, really liked that. There was one thing that Evan said, which going back to the story I told you about my ex and his manic period, when he was cooking in the kitchen and he was telling Issac that one of the things he disliked about Sonia is that she thinks she knows him better than he knows himself. And that is one of those symptoms, again, of feeling like you're being controlled, feeling like somebody is telling you what to do. And probably in the relationship that Evan had with Sonia, she probably spent most of her time being on guard, trying to figure out, is he having a manic episode? Is what he's doing right now going to lead to mania? Like when she says he's not supposed to smoke because that makes it worse. Like all of these things where she's kind of been babysitting him, that does make for a much different kind of relationship than a relationship that Evan would like, where his mental health didn't play a factor. And I think that's what took him so long to acknowledge that that was the case, because he's like, I just wanted a relationship that was like a relationship that didn't have to have somebody constantly keeping watch over me and making sure that I'm doing the right thing to keep from entering these episodes. I just wanted to love somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just, we don't have enough conversation about that. And I would love a reverse of this season. Like I would love to see this season through Evan's lens instead of Isac's. That would be
that'd be
phenomenal.
really cool. What's your rating overall?
Overall, I would give this like a solid, I would give it a 9. I think the only thing that keeps me from giving it more than a 9 is it is very short, which you know, I tend to like it a little more time. I either want it to be a movie length or I want it to be the full 12. And also I think I don't necessarily like the way that the girlfriends were handled in a lot of this. I didn't like that Emma outed Issac to other people, but I didn't like the fact that Issac, he had a very kind of like half apology to Emma. And I thought that like that probably could have been approached a little bit differently. So that's what I feel. But I mean, outside of that, I think this was really, really good.
Yeah, it's a solid 9 for me. It's truly one of my favorite pieces of gay media. When I watched this, it truly like, I think it was truly like the first time I feel like I really saw myself on screen, like mind, body, and soul. Like I really, not body, obviously. Evan, I am not a skinny, I am not a twink that Evan or that Isaac is. But Evan, or I always get, sorry, I keep saying, getting the names wrong. Isaac as a character really paralleled a lot of my journey that I was going through at the time. And I will always hold this piece of media really near and dear to me because it speaks so much to my experience. The scene where he's, you know, going on the am I gay quizzes, just the like low-key stalking, just the internalized homophobia, just all of it really, really connected with my own personal life. So I really love this series. I hope if you haven't seen it, you give it a watch. And yeah, it's just really great. Solid 9.
Agree. So Samantha's rant. Samantha's rant actually is a conversation that Mason and I had because of a YouTuber by the name of Cat Black. So Cat Black had a Twitter thread that she posted about another creator on, I think Twitch maybe, who is kind of a social topics streamer. Like they pick things in the news or they pick people in the news to discuss their homophobia or their racism or whatever else. And Cat Black had talked about the fact that this person used misogynistic language to defend trans people.
Mhm.
And Mason sent me this thread, and I read the thread and I read a little bit more, but then I could not read their DMs because I don't have that kind of time.
It was honestly like a full hour-long video essay in tweet form.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah, there were a lot of really good points made, but it is a very dense thread.
Yes. So I personally don't really like Cat Black's personality. She spent a lot of time talking about how little she cared, but she spent a lot of her energy talking about it, which does not feel like you don't care.
Mhm.
But this person seemed like somebody who, while trying to, I guess, be the good guy, was glazing over the fact that they were using bad guy language to be the good guy. And it's
Yeah.
a part of a larger conversation about how people will uphold systems of oppression even when they call themselves or claim to be dismantling them.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of a video I saw about J.K. Rowling and about the Harry Potter series. And I think the name of the video is just Harry Potter. And like the
Oh yeah,
thumbnail,
yeah, by Sean, right?
yes,
Really good video. Really, really good video.
really good video. And it talks a lot about how in J.K. Rowling's book series for Harry Potter, things would be brought up, but they would be kind of like fairly resolved. Basically, she'll introduce something and she'll put something on the shelf and then knock it off the shelf, basically.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he talked about was the fact that J.K. Rowling is a certain kind of liberal.
Mhm.
And it's a kind of liberal that I know what the American equivalent is, but I didn't know what the British side of it would be called.
Mhm.
So I guess a Blairite, which is somebody who is like a Bill Clinton-esque Democrat, but the
Mhm.
flip side being British, basically meaning like, I believe in personal freedoms, I believe in, rights for all, but within the framework and the systems already established for both capitalism and authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And when you are a person who upholds the system and only advocates for freedom on individual personal basis, you are just as bad as the people who uphold the system as being perfect.
Mhm.
Because you're not asking for the system to change, you're not willing to dismantle the system. And the reason why you don't is because, like we were speaking about earlier with code switching, you are hoping to game the system. The reason why somebody like J.K. Rowling has no problem with big government, has no problem with laws being passed to keep people from certain things is because she is a really super wealthy woman. And I think since the very beginning, she had hoped to work her way out of poverty and into wealth. And
Mhm.
so why would you buck a system that could possibly make you wealthier than you could ever dream of being? Not
Right.
only that, but like the thing that also happens when you are willing to accept certain parts of the system is that you don't have to examine your own biases and your own racism and your own shortcomings,
Mhm.
because you're like, well, generalities are okay, but specific people need to be treated a certain way. So in Harry Potter, it was okay for Harry Potter to be one of the wealthiest people to attend Hogwarts, and his best friend being from one of the poorest families to attend Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And for him to never truly solve that problem when he always could.
Never. The Weasleys literally would give Harry the clothes off of their backs to help protect and nurture him. And they would literally be at Gringotts and Harry would be like, ah, man, they don't have money. Wish I could help them, while he's like staring at his millions of dollars. And it's like, buy Ron robes. Ron broke his wand. Buy him a new wand. I don't know, buy something. You literally have the money to fix this.
Yeah. And then going into the wizarding world, which this is a conversation I had with my daughter many, many years ago when Pottermore first became a thing, and they were talking about the different wizarding universities. I remember thinking, like, why the fuck does Europe have 3 wizarding schools, but every other continent has 1 or 2?
Right.
And Europe is Asia. Let's be clear, it's the same landmass. But why would there be one school for China? Why would there be one school for all of Australia? One school for Africa?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense. But that's because in the system, J.K. Rowling is a white woman. So she doesn't have to think about minorities or think about different cultures, because in her idea of the way things work, her system has always told her the priority population is us.
Right.
And so she couldn't even begin to think of, like, maybe in places where I am the minority and there are large populations, they would have multiple schools and their schools would reflect them. Even
Right.
like the character of Cho Chang, move a couple of letters and it is something I'm not going to say out loud.
Yeah. It's a great video. I can link it down below. I think if you're...
So I think it's frozen again. Is it frozen?
I can hear you, but like your video.
I think it might have frozen again.
I can hear you though. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
You're fine.
So all told, when we're talking about freedom for people and we're having these conversations about freedom for everybody, if we go back to, again, base humanity, no sex, no ethnic background, no disability or ability. If we go to base, and again, these systems are what separates us from base. It makes sense to dismantle these systems, but someone like a J.K. Rowling can't dismantle the system, because if you dismantle the system, then she would lose everything, and she can't. And definitely European Americans and Europeans, full stop. Imperialism is such a part of their DNA that they are born into believing there has to be a class system, that the world cannot work any other way.
Right.
And it's sad and funny and then tragic again when you take those same attitudes and opinions and you look at the war in Ukraine. Because you've got Vladimir Putin, who in essence is trying to enforce the Russian Empire, which was dismantled by the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution. Like the whole tale of Anastasia and her family, like all of the Russian Empire was broken up by that. He is trying to reform that. And in reforming the Russian Empire, there's a couple of things that also would have to be reformed. You'd have to have a king or an emperor again, which Putin is trying to make himself become. Hereditary power structures to where people can no longer work their way up into something. You have to be born into it. And the idea of serfdom again, creating a class of people who can never be any better than the station that they were born into in life. And if you were born into a lower station, you have literally no rights to exist. Every part of your existence is dictated by what the people in a higher position believe you're allowed to have. And somebody like a J.K. Rowling would probably say, like, this is insane. This shouldn't exist. This is horrible. This is sad. This is awful. We shouldn't allow this to happen. But when it's Syrian refugees that need help, it's like, well, those are brown people, and they're not as sophisticated as us in our systems. Or if it comes to trans rights, well, the system has always said women are women and men are men, and it's based on whatever you were born with between your legs. So sorry, you're just gonna have to deal with it.
J.K. Rowling legitimately like having and supporting Nazis, like modern day Nazis, over trans rights proves that she was always full of shit. Because her whiteness and her womanhood cannot be tampered with.
Yeah. Even like the way she feels about fat people. It's just like,
oh my God. I like truly never really picked up on that until that Sean video. And he was like, do y'all know the way she talks about fat people? And I was like,
your corpulent visage with sweat pooling between the folds. Like the way she describes fat people is like we've been dunked in a pool of sweat and grease.
Yeah. and that you're a bad person.
Yeah, and just roll our way through life, steamrolling people and eating them. Like, it's just, but I wanted to engage in this conversation because I think that pulling it back to the cat black conversation, one great point that's made there again is using the language of our oppressors in order to fight against our oppressors. Is it actually effective? And no, it's not. No,
Right.
it's not. It's not effective to tell J.K. Rowling, get back in the kitchen or get back to writing your books. Women are best seen and not heard. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the people who want her to shut up. It doesn't help the people who want her to continue to speak. All it does is just show how little thought you've put into your arguments. All it shows is that you're not creative. It shows that you are upholding those same oppressive structures and you don't even see it, because you're using their language as if that language is base, and it's not.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that because I think it's important that we start to change the way we look at things, start to change the way we feel about things, and really identify, like, if I'm going to make the argument that you need to be less racist, then I need to be less sexist. If I'm going to make the argument that you need to be less homophobic, I need to be less ableist. You know, we should work hard to dismantle it all.
Yes.
Okay.
Snaps.
All right.
Now, on to something lighter. Real quick, manga of the week, Sasaki and Miyano. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but there's currently an anime adaptation going around, and honestly is probably the best boys love anime adaptation in recent years. It's still like a C, but I think I'm gonna do like a video on that anyways. But really, really cute. It is like, if you love like a fruits basket, like a real shoujo, it's very light, a real big slow burn, this is the one for you. It is adorable. It has some really beautiful art. I in particular really love the way that this artist draws hair. It's just really, really pretty. All these characters look so pretty. I love the use of tone. I love her line work. It's just a really nice series. It's about two boys who, one is Sasaki, and he befriends Miyano, and he finds out that Miyano is a fudanshi, which is like a man who loves boys love. And he's like, I'm kind of into that. And so they start swapping boys loves, and Sasaki ends up developing a crush on Miyano. And then it's a lot of Miyano being like, hang on, am I gay? So it's fun. We have a good time. I really recommend it.
Yay! And I have Instagrams of the day. Just to be clear, the actor who plays Issac, I could not find an official Instagram for him. Otherwise, I would have given it. But I didn't see one, so that's why I don't have it. But I do have an Instagram for Evan. His Instagram is Hinkihome. I'm certain I'm pronouncing this wrong. Listen, people from Europe, I know that our letters look similar, but they're not nearly pronounced the same. And so I'm going to butcher every single thing I talk about here. Please don't be mad at me. I just literally don't know how to say it. So Henrik Holm is the actor who plays Evan, and his Instagram is HEN, so like a hen, like a chicken, KEHOLM. So kind of like Sherlock Holmes, but without the ES. So HENKEHOLM. And he's got 744,000 followers. So you'll know if you got the right one when you see the follower count.
And he has a cute dog.
And then the next one I have is for Jonas, because I thought he had an interesting looking Instagram, so that's why I chose him. Even though he wasn't like a huge part of the season, he was like one of our MVPs. I don't know why I didn't pull Sana's Instagram. I'm so sorry. But his Instagram is Marlon Langland, which I will spell that out. It's M like Mason, ARLON like Nancy, LAN like Nancy, GELAN like Nancy again, D like dog. Marlon Langland, all one word. And like I said, his Instagram was interesting looking, so that's why I'm like, huh, okay. But he's got 348,000 followers. How funny. Both of these people are followed by my daughter. It's funny. And on his little bio, it says currently undergoing experiences, which I find that super clever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one I have is for the actor who played Eskild, and he has 163,000 followers, so not as many as the first two. And his is Carl Martin Egg. That's his Instagram. So it's CARL, Carl Martin, MARTIN, and then egg, like oboe, EGG. Carl Martin Egg. And he had a post on his Instagram that I sent to Mason of him laying face down in a pond with his butt cheeks in the air, talking about how he did not know that fish gave blowjobs. And it was a weird post, but I sent it to Mason anyway because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, he has an interesting Instagram.
Yeah. So those are some Instagrams of the day for you if you are interested in following up on these actors. But yeah, from what I understand, Issac does not have an Instagram, an official Instagram. There are several larger fan accounts, but there's not an official for him. And guys, this show happened in 2016. All of these people look way different than they used to. I think Eskild is the only one who looks very similar, but like, the guy who plays Issac, he was 17 when they filmed this, and he looks very different now. Very, very different. He looks very grown. He's got a full beard. Like he looks very different. He's still very attractive though, but he just looks very different.
I wish he had an Instagram so badly.
I'm sorry. I looked, and I did not.
I know. I looked too.
Yeah, I did look like other actors, and I was like, "Who's in this photograph?"
Yeah.
You know, but I couldn't find. So I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, now we need to talk about some stuff with our vlogs. Mason is still going to be uploading stuff to his channel. Hopefully one day the internet will let him be great and his lives will actually come through. But
I have filmed I literally filmed the same haul live at least 2 to 3 times, and it was a banger each time, but I've given up. So if the lives don't work, I have another K-pop haul coming of like G-Idol, Brave Girl, some of the new stuff that I will either do a live that I'll keep up, or I'll do just a recorded video.
I think you're just gonna have to do a recorded video, friend, because YouTube refuses to let you be live.
They know I'm gonna say something slanderous, and they're trying to protect me from that, I think.
Because like I've been trying to join, and I'm like, what's happening?
Oh yeah, they're honestly nightmares. I think YouTube knows that I'm too spicy with my K-pop videos, and they're trying to keep me away from it. So I'll do that. I might do the Sasuke and Miyano one. But as far as like Sam and I videos, we're gonna take about a month break for some personal reasons. So please bear with us. We do have stuff lined up. I mean, we mentioned Paris is Burning. We're thinking of Paris is Burning. We've talked about doing Moonlight soon. No Name, I believe, is the next Boys Love series we might do.
Not Me.
Oh, huh?
It's called Not Me.
Not Me, sorry. And then our next music review is Janet. And the next music review after that, I still haven't decided on.
Yeah, and we're hoping that we'll have our friend Jade with us for the Janet music review, but we haven't ironed that out yet. Honestly, this time the break is on me. I know in the past, I know that Mason's had to have a break, but for me personally, I'm the one who needs the break this time. I am moving. I'm moving out of this apartment at the end of this month. Today is the 20th of March. And so, yeah, the end of this month, I got to move and I got to get set up in my new place, or where I'm going to be at when I move out of here. And so I'm just in a lot of flux right now, trying to get all the logistics of that settled and trying to figure out how I'm going to film in the new place. But I will, if I can, I'll try to film some small things with Mason if the opportunity arises, or if I can send him something, I'll send him something. But yeah, I have a YouTube channel, by the way. Shawl 360,
Mhm.
and I have taken a hiatus on that channel as well. And so if you are looking for me, I'm gonna be in the wind right now. I'm not really gonna be present, but
Mhm.
I'm always looking, always seeing, always paying
Mhm.
attention. And one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about too, as our audience, because I feel like we don't ask you guys to do a whole bunch, but this is something that is important to me, and hopefully it's something that's important to Mason. We really need your comments. It's not that we are like so vain and feel like, oh, we need constant praise, but I am. We are not, but I am. I need to hear what you think. I feel like in the beginning we were getting a lot more comments. We had a lot more people saying things, and lately it just feels like people are like, that's a nice shirt, and then that's it. And so I would really like to hear your feedback, especially if you have a recommendation for something for us to watch or to react to, because honestly, I don't think that I would have been interested in SKAM if it wasn't continuously being recommended. So yeah, I'd like to hear from you, even if what you're going to say is spicy. Like, I respond to spicy comments sometimes because I
Mhm.
sometimes get in my feelings about it. But like, if you want to die on the hill that is Young Royals and tell me why I'm wrong, let me hear it, because I'm willing to hear it.
Mhm.
But I really would like to hear from you all, because it it's nice that we can sometimes see where some of the videos we do, the views pick up a little bit, but when the views are up and there's still nothing there comment wise, it kind of feels like we're talking to the wind. And I
Mhm.
don't mind talking to the wind because I got hot air for days, but it would be nice to know that people are actually watching and paying attention.
Yeah, I've never heard that phrase. I got hot air for days. Consider it stolen. All right. Well, thank you all for watching, and I hope we see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.